Of course, a big story that we continue to cover is this parasite, so to speak, that a lot of people are discussing. And I want to pop this up to actually give you a look at some of the feeds that we are following as we get back into that. Now, federal health officials have identified lettuce from Mexico served at Taco Bell locations in 5 different U.S. states as a source of that widespread outbreak of the diarrhea-causing parasite Cyclospora. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warning consumers not to eat shredded iceberg lettuce from Taco Bell restaurants in 5 different states. And I want to pull this up for you to give you a look at exactly what we're talking about on that map right there. Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. A record number of cases have been reported in more than 30 states, and experts have said that not every recent illness there might be caused by a single source. An investigation by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, there identified a single supplier of that lettuce. Now, I want to go through some of the statements that we are getting as a result here of all of this. And this is actually coming in from Taco Bell. They say, "We want you to hear it from us. We take your health and safety seriously and have removed all affected Taylor Farms lettuce from Taco Bell stores. So go ahead and enjoy your Taco Bell today. You always got us. We always got you. See you in the drive-thru." Again, they are reacting after the reports there from the CDC and, of course, the FDA investigating. Now, Taylor Farms also responding, saying essentially that no Taylor Farms branded salads or kits are associated with that Cyclospora outbreak. Again, all of this is going to be under investigation by the FDA, and there's a lot of questions here about how all of this could impact just about everyone. I want to bring in Jay Aldebert, the Chief Growth Officer of International Services Incorporated, to help break down all of this here. And Jay, I got to start by asking you overall how small restaurants, grocers are calculating the true cost of all of this here and potentially losing sales as a result.
It's an excellent question. There is going to be two impacts. Obviously, one to the top line, the revenue generation, your pedestrian inflow of clients, as well as orders that are done through third party. That's going to be one side of it for sure. The other side is the cost of that product. If we're just looking at shredded iceberg lettuce, based on supply first and foremost, and the overall pricing model of the difference between a U.S.-based product and a Mexico-based product, it's going to have an impact on food costs significantly, actually.
And how quickly should operators maybe be adjusting their pricing, their product mix, capacity when demand drops because of something like this, an outbreak where so many people are either affected or even concerned about potentially being impacted?
It's going to be this weekend. That's how fast. They're going to have to start looking at what their costs are, specifically when you look at a product or a plate, as it's called. Looking at food cost and labor cost and how much the increase is going to be. And it's a very unique product that it's shredded lettuce on its own, but it's going to have a major effect on their food costs, and they should be taking inventory of that right away.
What should independent farms, regional suppliers really communicate to protect the consumer trust during an investigation like this? Because again, you're looking at that map and the CDC has essentially said don't eat this shredded iceberg lettuce at any Taco Bell in these locations. And again, you have folks that are worried about it and maybe aren't eating any kind of iceberg lettuce or lettuce in general, just to make sure they don't become sick in any way. So what should those independent farms, regional suppliers really make sure to get out there?
It's got to be a good marketing campaign on their behalf. Right now, if you are an independent restaurant owner, the first thing you should be doing is naming names, where your grower is from, what region it's from, who's the processor of that product. That should be a full marketing campaign, and whether that's internally inside of your restaurant, and if they're sourcing it from these farms, these local farms, making sure that obviously that's marketed as well. Being able to put that on third-party delivery apps in terms of your restaurant, and maybe some of your menu items may have that product in it as well. It's got to be a full onslaught marketing campaign of where you get your product.
What about the kind of, I guess you could say, switch to locally grown? Is that something that you see looking down the line, something that's temporary, or do you think it's really going to become maybe what people are doing, what they're looking for?
If you look for the at the bigger picture of the product itself, it really only comes from three sources, right? The three main sources that you're going to get it. One of those is California, the other is Arizona, and the third is Mexico. That's where Mexico only makes up about 7% of the supply. Why you want to know that is because what right now, California was already tight as it relates to their supply. And because they were tight as it relates to their supply, the supplementation was coming in from Mexico. Mexico at this point has been frozen in terms of that import of that product. So now what happens is the tight supply that was already there is specifically going to be a supply and demand issue because most of the chain restaurants which use that product are under contract already. They're going to consume the most amount about it. So to answer your question, where that cycles into is Arizona's great growing supply doesn't come in until about November. So now you're going to have these independent restaurants. They're going to have to look because the supply is being consumed by the chain restaurants. They're going to have to look at other sources. So the farmers themselves are going to be in actually an advantageous position in terms of pricing. In terms of the business owners, though, the independent restaurants, it is going to be a heavy impact, even on that small food cost.
And on that same note here, how can small operators maybe turn those changing consumer habits into a sustainable business strategy? Again, you kind of touched on this there, but how can they kind of go about that? Because you have so many people who say, this is what I'm going to do from here on out. Wait, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is what the trend is. How do you go about that?
Yeah, don't jump at things right away. I've seen people talk about, they're going to switch over their product to shredded romaine. To give you an example, the food cost as it relates to that versus lettuce is huge. So we as a firm, we analyze probably about 10,000 companies a year, and I would say maybe 1,000, 800 to 1,000 of them are small, medium-sized restaurants. What we find most common is they'll know things that are lagging indicators like they'll get their accounting and it'll show them that their food cost, let's say, is 37%, but that is a lagging indicator. It's coming months after really a month of operation. So being able to look at your costs and be able to know specifically every ingredient that goes into the presentation of your product or plate itself, the labor cost, knowing where you can actually cut in other areas if this product itself is going to cost you more, that's the next steps you're going to see or should be undertaken by those small, medium-sized businesses.
When you look at this as a whole and talk specifically about small businesses, any maybe misunderstandings or just something that you think people don't realize about any of this here? Break that down for folks.
Um, the biggest thing that was shocking to me when I was, obviously doing some investigation here, and it's not necessarily related to small business, it is related to business, is how Wall Street made their decisions about who are going to be the winners and losers in this situation. That was one of the most shocking, and how it affects small business, obviously. When you look at Sweet Green itself, their stock dropped by 24% uh, in, in the last month, essentially. And although they have no link, no cases, nothing indicating that they have any of these products, Wall Street already decided that they're an issue. Same thing with Cava, which is essentially a competition or very similar to a Chipotle product. Those individuals, that stock dropped 24%. But however, Chipotle, interestingly enough, in the last month has had a 5.6% increase in overall stock value. That was most shocking to me. And I actually looked deeper into it. When Chipotle had a E. coli issue in 2015, they went through obviously a stringent safety and health inspections of all of their locations, and different policies were put in place. And interestingly enough, that was the gamble that Wall Street was making when this story first broke. They're willing to invest in Chipotle based off of that change in policy versus obviously the restaurants that are heavy salad based, I guess, or salad based products.
All right, Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, helping to break all this down. It's something that we are keeping a very close eye on, really the impacts
Sure.
of this and the investigation, what happens next. Anything we missed, anything that you want to make sure to add here about anything before I let you go?
Yeah, I think the only thing is the small independent restaurants. Look at your costs. We covered that. Do internal marketing, do external marketing. Make sure that your clients know that you're safe. Know about where you get and source your products. I think I can't stress that enough. Don't wait till next week. Do it this weekend.
All right, Jay, thank you again for taking the time to join us and helping to break it down. We definitely appreciate it.
Josh, this has been great. Thank you.
And I do want to pop this up coming in from the CDC as it says state, local, and federal partners are working together to investigate that multi-state outbreak of the parasite Cyclospora. Investigations to identify sources of illness are ongoing. We'll make sure to keep you updated here on all of this as we get additional information. Again, the FDA is investigating and the CDC putting out all of that information.